Welcome to Pink Kink,
where we talk about the pretty, twisted side of kink.
I'm Princess Rara.
And I'm Dara, the Electro Khaleesi.
Whether you are a new kinkster or have years of experience, Pink Kink will help you level up your kink knowledge.
Join us on this journey as we talk about our personal experiences and use the knowledge we've gained over 28 years of being involved in both private and professional aspects of this lifestyle to help you explore every facet of kink.
Get set for an adventure. Not only will you learn and grow, but we promise loads of laughter, turning each episode into a fun party. So fasten your seatbelt and let's get this show started. Pink Kink runs off the generosity of our devoted patrons.
As a patron, you will become a member of our special Discord server, receive some adorable Pink Kink stickers, as well as have access to a monthly behind-the-scenes podcast. Patrons also get discounts at our Etsy shop, Pink Kink Boutique, and our online classes at Pink Kink Institute.
In addition, our impactful and electrifying Pink Kinksters get special audio and video episodes. And finally, patrons at our highest tier will be recognized as producers, both here on the podcast and on our website.
If you would like to become a patron, you can visit us at patreon.com/pinkkinkpodcast or click the link at pinkkinkpodcast.com.
Today's episode is produced by our electrifying Pink Kinksters. Thank you, Jay, Witcherman, Brianna Lynn, Daddy J, Fabe, Embers, Blossom, William P., Claire, Lady Blooding, Naughty and Nice, Butte Pain, Manda Panda, Cat, Shadow Phoenix, Brian, May Cry Devil, Ruby Riot, Mistress Velma, Enchanted Sparrow, The Wombat, Impact Hazard, Twitch, The Midnight Girl, Sinful, J21, Daisy If You Do, AK Harley Chick, Violet Rain, Serenity, Belle, Eric, Lady Affliction, Dr. Dave,
Pumpkin Pie, Ms. Tourmaline, S'more, Hacksaw, Wee Mad Beastie, To Be Better For Me, 3 a.m. Thoughts, Forest, Crash Override, Iro, Kinky Bear, Sviper No Sviping, Barbie, Navigator Bard, Frost, Sinful and Naughty, Coffee and Chaos, Noir, Mr. Pillsbury, Stitch, Peaches, Mighty Owl, Princess Sassy Pants, Lady and Lex, Chaos Monster, Hazel Page, Jessa Lady, DJ Harlow, Ophelia, Drew, Sexy Sunrise, Daddy's Pumpkin, and Birchbeard.
We have been told by our listeners and our patrons that they think we are especially funny when we are exhausted and hungover from the dungeon. So I am hoping that they're right and that you guys are going to enjoy this episode and it will be funny as hell because we are ragging.
I have no bones. I have no body. Well, that's not true. Let me rephrase. I can feel every single part of my body.
Okay, that's better than when you got here and you told me you couldn't feel any part of your body.
I think what I meant to say was every follicle in my skin hurts. Like all of it, every single part. And it's just so overwhelming that my brain shuts off and makes me numb. Because holy shit, do I have the biggest dungeon hangover right now. I don't understand how you guys think everything we do when we're like this is funny. Because I'm not feeling funny right now. I'm feeling dead. I'm oddly energized in this body that doesn't want to move. I've already accomplished a lot before you got here. But our recording session started off. First of all, y'all know about my Where's Dara game, right? Well, today, apparently that was too easy, the original version of Where's Dara game. So Dara has upped the level now to Where's Dara 2.0. And all I get is, find me. That's how she typed it with a whole lot of ease. And then I gave you a clue.
I had already walked out the door by the time you got the clue through.
You walked out the door while I was typing the clue?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, that's not fire. I actually did give you a clue.
Eventually, but I was already out the door.
Well, that's not my fault that you walked faster than I anticipated with the typing, because I was literally typing.
We are on a tight schedule today. You have asked the Virgo OCD person to work on a schedule. I am going to keep us on a goddamn schedule.
Okay. So anyway, next story about Dara.
And poor Dara, we're getting all of our equipment set up and we're doing our usual 1, 2, 3 testing, 1, 2, 3 testing. And Dara's like, mine's not working. Why is my mic not working? Why is my mic not working? I'm like, is it on? Yes. It's not working. See, it's on. It's not working. Oh, yeah. I guess I need to plug it in.
Well, on my behalf, normally they're plugged in all the time. So this was odd.
Well, you don't you unplug it when you leave? Because the equipment's at my house, so
I do not. I leave it all plugged in.
Well, there you go. So that's really fault. How we started. But I'm a little bit concerned about this episode today. Because I feel based upon what we're going to be talking about, we need to be funny. It's a funny topic.
I'm feeling funny. Yep.
And if Dara's going to be over here going, I'm so funny, when we're talking about this particular topic, it's a little concerning.
Well, then be concerned because I don't have the energy to be funny.
Do I need to tickle you?
No, hell no. Back the fuck off.
How do you really feel?
Fuck that. Nope.
So let me understand.
Anti-kink.
So let me say, we're going to be talking about something that one would think would inspire humor, that Dara is not feeling funny today, and she wants nothing to do with this because I'm not allowed to touch her.
This is like horror show for me. This is not funny. This is torture.
So this is a hard limit for you.
Big time.
So what are you supposed to say when something's a hard limit?
Purple.
There you go. Just making sure you remember all of our safe words.
I remember the fucking safe words.
So we are talking about, I think, a misunderstood kink that a lot of people have thoughts about it negative.
Hi.
Or people like me who, like, it doesn't work for me. And then that's very frustrating to the people trying to do it to me, which just makes my sadist happy because I frustrated the hell out of them.
I have a funny dungeon story about this, though, when you get into it. Yeah.
So what we're doing is we are talking about tickling. And that, yes, tickling is a kink, and it is part of BDSM. It is under the sensation play category. But oddly enough, tickling can be both pleasant and sadistic.
I feel like that's everything, though, in kink. Like hitting you, it could be pleasant, but it could also be sadistic.
That's valid.
I mean,
but I don't know that people necessarily think of the word sadistic when they think of tickling.
I do.
So do you want to share your story now? Is this the appropriate time?
Oh, no, I was just going to say that I had a person last night on my table who said they weren't ticklish and then ended up giggling over every single fucking thing I did. And like full bodily giggling.
Now, here's the question. I know you don't want to be tickled. How do you feel about being the tickler?
Well, because I'm not going to use my hands to tickle. Like, I'm not going to go dig into your skin and tickle you like that because that's annoying. But in electro, I genuinely love tickling because it's like, and a lot of people, they like it, they enjoy it. I started doing that way back when I first started. I realized that there were certain spots on just about every single person that makes them giggle when hit with electro. So here's the other story. I think I've told this before, but it's one of my favorite stories to tell. So we have this friend, Mr. Irrelevant, absolute love of a man, adore him. We were at a party once and I was sitting there doing my electro thing and making people laugh hysterically like I do. And he walks up to me, he goes, "Yeah, I'm not ticklish at all." And I was like, "Bet."
Challenge accepted.
Bet, buddy. And so he sits on my table and I start going. And his girlfriend at the time counted, like actually pulled out a watch and started timing it. 17 seconds.
Oh, that long.
Was all it took. Before he was giggling and going, "Oh my God, stop. Ah." I hope you're listening because I will never, ever stop telling this story.
I'm pretty sure he doesn't listen.
Well, we'll have to send him this story in particular because this one, yeah. So anyway, the bet was if he lost, he had to go around to the party for the rest of the night and introduce himself. "Hi, I'm Mr. Irrelevant, and Dara made me giggle."
Because that was the bet?
That was the bet.
Okay, well, let me just preface this all by saying that Mr. Irrelevant likes to make bets.
And lose them.
And he loses most of the time. This is my football betting buddy. So when I talk about the football bets and getting to do funny things to my friend, this is who we're talking about. He is always making bets, and he loses way more than he ever wins. So I'm not surprised he took this bet.
Like, it's almost like he has a humiliation fetish with the bets.
But doesn't want to admit it.
Right, exactly. Like, he lost a bet one time because, okay, so he doesn't like cheese, like viciously doesn't like cheese.
Which we don't understand.
Well, I'm lactose intolerant to like the nth degree and I adore cheese. And this dude just does not like cheese. So at one point he lost a bet and then we were at a dungeon and we did, what was it? The cheese bukkake scene?
Yes.
Where we were just spraying him with cheese whiz and throwing sliced cheese at him. And like, this dude was absolutely fucking covered in cheese. What? Somebody put cheese whiz in his armpit.
Ew.
And then smushed it down.
Okay, purple.
Right? Yeah, for everybody. But like, he just stood there and took it because he lost the bet. I mean, like, what kind of person?
Well, he is a gentleman about that. When he loses the bet, he does accept the consequences of his actions. He still owes me from last football season's bet.
Oh, you haven't?
No, because I haven't had a party.
Oh, okay. I was going to say
for him to pay up. So maybe I'll go double or nothing this season. We'll see. But tickling is really a very interesting kink, at least as far as I'm concerned, because it's not what you would traditionally think of, right? When you think of tickling, you think of playful and silly and giddy and laughter. And somehow that just doesn't sound like what people tend to think BDSM is, right? The dark, scary dungeon where there's just sounds of pain and all that.
And screams. Ah!
But there are definitely some people who absolutely have a tickling fetish. I mean, there is, I know I've talked about it, a gentleman with a foot fetish whose specific foot fetish is tickling feet.
Nope. And
I never did scenes with him because my feet are not ticklish, which is why I can get pedicures and Dara can't.
I cannot. I absolutely can't. I've kicked people. Like, and it's literally a knee-jerk reaction, and I can't help it.
My feet were so sore last night that had there been time, I would have signed up for a foot session with the foot fetish demo top, because I would have loved that massage. I watched him. Nope. I don't think he doesn't do tickling. He does feet massage.
Okay, well that maybe
that was it. But tickling is basically a sensation play involving light touch, and the goal typically is to provoke laughter and a heightened sensory response. Though, as we will discuss, you can also make it quite sadistic. You can make it a playful act that's just a part of a regular BDSM scene, or you could make it the focal point of the BDSM scene. And you can incorporate it into your DS dynamics. I mean, just think about that as a punishment. If that was a punishment, you might be more willing to do your chores and tasks to avoid getting tickled. If you could see the look on Dara's face, she's like, oh, I'm not doing it. So obviously you've got different intensity levels within tickling. You've got your light tickling, where it's just really gentle teasing touches meant to provoke your laughter. It's commonly used in your playful and non-threatening scenes. You've got moderate tickling, which is just going to be obviously a little bit more persistent and maybe a little more targeted to the specific areas that you know somebody is extra ticklish. And you're increasing the sensation. You're trying to overload their sensories. That doesn't make sense.
You're trying to overload their sensories. That doesn't make sense. It's a lot of sense and sensibility going on in there.
Okay, well, again, this is called being really tired and hungover from the dungeon. So, yeah. That's why.
So I don't have to do anything. I just have to laugh at you? Done. No problem.
Right, you got that.
No worries.
The tickler is maintaining control in this situation. And as I said, it's usually much more targeted and intentional. Then there's intense tickling, where it's prolonged, it's focused. Ideally, if you're doing it right, the person who's the tickler, tickly is, oh my God.
Tickly.
The tickly. Got to say it with the going up at the end.
The tickly. Wait, can we can put a little Italian spin on it. The ticcolini. It sounds like a pasta.
The ticcolini.
I love it. I'm sorry, but that's going to be the new word.
I'm all for it.
Oh,
we're just going to use that, and anybody who tries to start in the middle of this episode is not going to understand. So
yeah, no. Obviously, the word for the person being tickled is ticcolini.
The word of the day is ticklini, someone who is being tickled.
Brought to you by Dungeon Hangover.
God, so
What?
does that make Tickle Me Elmo the ticklini?
That's the tickly me. Tickly me?
And we're off.
Oh no. It has begun. Gee,
What was I saying?
I don't know, but I thought my job was going to be to laugh at you. I fucked up. Shit, I need a tissue.
This is how we know we're off. We're just off. All right, so we were on intense tickling. The ticklini
Can't do it.
is going to be maybe a little more breathless. There's going to be a lot of intense laughter or silent laughter, depending upon them.
Make sure you have tissues.
Right? Their senses are going to be overwhelmed. And this is more where the tickleese limits are being tested under controlled, but emphasis on consensual circumstances.
Okay, I'm
Okay,
good.
you good?
Yeah. Took me that entire time to like get under control.
So how does tickling fit into the whole spectrum of BDSM? Well, as Dara rightfully pointed out, most of the things that we do in kink can be either sensation play or sadistic play, which is an interesting way to talk about things, because if I'm hitting you, even if I'm hitting you sadistically with the intent of hurting and causing pain, that is still a type of sensation.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to really be nitpicky, impact is a type of sensation play. The sensation's just ouch.
The sensation is whack.
As opposed to temperature play, where the sensation is the different temperatures, or electro play, where the sensation is the electricity. So impact play, you're going to have usually much more physical intensity. And then you'll have after effects from the spanking or your flogging or your caning with some bruises, as opposed to tickling, which doesn't really leave bruises, because if you are really digging your fingers into the person, as far as I'm concerned, you've bypassed tickling. And so tickling is not necessarily going to cause them difficulty in sitting down the next day.
Well, depending on how much of an ab workout they just got from laughing, maybe.
Right. And you've got like temperature play, where you've got the sensory variations and the use of contrasting temperatures. While in tickling, you've got unpredictable and varied sensations. It's much harder to control the tickling as far as, am I doing it hard or soft? Because let's face it, when you're tickling somebody, they are moving. So unless you have completely strapped them down where they are completely immobile, they're going to be moving and trying to roll away from you and trying to pull away from you. So you might start off tickling really lightly, but they're moving. And now all of a sudden, as you're trying to grab them and bring them back, the tickling is getting a little bit more intense. And so it's just much harder. But as you can see, just in the small description, it's a sensation play just like all the others. And so I think tickling should get the same amount of respect, even if we call it ticklini.
No, I'm sorry, but after that, I don't think there's a lot of respect going on. But I was just thinking, last night, I think I was doing a little tickling, and just like every time they rolled, I would just get a little deeper into the belly area, and they're like, ah, 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 ah. And I'm like, yeah, you realize every time you roll like that, you're giving me more access, right?
Yeah,
so
but
like,
they're rolling in the wrong direction.
right.
But yeah.
They're rolling away from the thing that's tickling them, which is opening them up for more tickling. So I guess I do like doing it mostly because it just makes them scream and wiggle, and I like that.
You like the sound effects.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the tickles. I just like the noise.
How can you use tickling in power dynamics? Well, within a dom-sub relationship, you can use tickling to reinforce dominance control and the submissive surrender. I mean, it to get somebody and tie them down and tickle them, they are really having to give up control and surrender to your power authority through tickling. Tickling is also extremely versatile. As I talked about, they can be part of playful scenes where you can use them in lighthearted, fun ways. Even in my impact scene, I sometimes will use tickling, not even necessarily with my hands, but I have that big thumper thing from Sire Dawn that has the rabbit fur on it. And sometimes I will just lightly rub that on their body. I like to especially get around the neck, because for a lot of people, that neck is a very ticklish spot.
Mm-hmm.
And while you certainly cannot hit in the neck area, do not hit in the neck area, for God's sake. I can certainly take a rabbit fur and rub around in that area and kind of give them a little bit of tickles. You can also use tickling for disciplinary scenes. Imagine using tickling as a form of mild punishment or behavioral correction where the discomfort is psychological versus physical. And then, of course, there's the erotic components. For some people, tickling is foreplay and erotic play, and it really heightens the arousal and builds the sexual tension, even if you don't necessarily mean it to tickle. Like for that really, I know for me, one of the reasons I personally don't enjoy the Wartenberg wheel is I find the Wartenberg wheel ticklish.
Really?
Yeah, I know, I'm weird.
Really?
Because I like heavy sensation. Hit me hard.
That makes sense.
If you do something very light, just more surface, I find that a little bit more on the ticklish side. And I don't mean ticklish in the sense like I'm going to go, ooh, ah. It's just that to me, that's how I describe it in my head is ticklish.
It's too light. It's
It's
flinchy.
just too light. But when having sex, that is very erotic, with the hands just up and down the arms. As like last night, like when I pet my friend before I left. His daughter goes, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm petting him."
I didn't know who it was that you got permission to pet.
That's my pet. I'm just going to call him Pet now.
Uh-oh.
I haven't asked him if I should, so I'm sorry. I'll ask him next time. But
you're calling him the verb pet, not the noun pet.
Both?
Because
he's my pet because I pet him.
Yeah, we're going to have to work on that.
Right. Now, as with anything when it comes to kink, you got to talk about consent and safe practices. And I know that sounds silly, safe practices for tickling. It's just tickling for God's sake. You got to talk about safe practices and you'll figure out why while we're going through. So start off, of course, with explicit consent. Talk about exactly how tickling is going to work. People may have certain areas of their body where tickling is just a fuck to the hell no. Like, right, Dara, for you? Feet.
Hell no. Do not fucking touch my feet.
Right? But if Daddy J wanted to kind of give you a little tickle on the side.
Yeah, that'd be fine. He does it anyway.
But he can't do your feet.
No, he's tried and I've kicked him. That was on purpose. That wasn't a knee-jerk reaction. That was me being genuinely pissed that he tickled me.
Right. So you have to sit down. I know people might think, oh, well, tickling, come on, that's not painful, that's not hurtful, it's not like impact, it's not going to leave bruises, it's not going to do any damage. So why is it such a big deal? That's why, because somebody might kick you if you tickle them in the spot they don't want to be tickled
Somebody might get hurt.
And it's not the ticcolini.
You never know. There could be some innocent bystanders, if somebody comes and tickles you without consent and you have a fight response to being tickled. Like, I normally have a freeze response to everything except for being tickled. Then it's a fight response. Mm-hmm. And I lash out. And there could be an innocent bystander that might get hurt. So,
look, I'm of an age where I am one good sneeze away from throwing out my back.
Oh, I'm just a sneeze away from peeing my pants.
Right?
Like,
that too. But my point being is, what happens if you have somebody, let's say, with a bad back? You got to tickle them. A lot of times when you're being tickled, your natural reaction is to jerk away. You got a bad back, or let's say a problem with your neck,
or knees.
and you jerk away, you could really get hurt.
Oh, wouldn't that suck? Oh my God. Can you imagine the tickler's reaction if they like genuinely hurt somebody from what they thought was just an innocent little tickle?
Right. And that's why I want to talk about tickling as a kink, so that similar to like what I talked to somebody the other day about my view with bratting and how it's a kink and how you use safe words, consent, negotiations, and all that. Mm-hmm. And they're looking at me like going, oh my God, that makes so much sense. They had never thought about it this way. It's the same thing with fucking tickling. You think it's this innocent thing because you're thinking of little kids who get tickled all the time, right?
Right.
It's one of their favorite games. I remember when my kids were little. It was one of their favorite games. Tickle me, mommy, tickle me. And when it comes to what we do here, especially as adults and knowing better, it needs to be treated like a kink with negotiations and safe words and boundaries and fucking consent that is discussed. So it is informed consent. So make sure you have a mutual understanding and agreement on all the limits. You've got your negotiation, your pre-scene negotiation, where you've got to identify ticklish spots, both ones that they can touch, ones that they can't touch, and comfort levels. Like, in this spot, you can tickle me, but you can only tickle me at like a level 4. But in this spot, you can tickle me at a level 10 and I'm fine. And at this spot, this is a hard limit spot. My feet, do not tickle me there whatsoever. And really sit down and set those expectations and those boundaries before the damn scene begins. And I'm talking about when tickling is very intentional, when you really, for me to sit and talk about, like I take the rabbit fur, it's just really a light sensation. It's not what I would necessarily call full out tickling, but it's a light sensation. But I have asked at the beginning of the negotiations, are there any areas I need to be aware of? So I would already know if there's a back area problem or a neck area problem. And if they tell me that, then I will not do that cutesy little rubbing of the rabbit fur anywhere that might cause them to jump. So you want to make sure you do that. Then during the scene, you need to check in with your partner and ensure that there's ongoing consent and comfort. And check in. Is this too much? How's this doing? Is the spot okay? Is it not? Hopefully you will have discussed some nonverbal cues and signals that can be used. Body language, so that the ticklini, when the ticklini is reaching their limits. And when you need to kind of pull back, things like Dara says, okay, that's her stopping.
Yep, that would actually, I for something like this, I would definitely say that wouldn't even be on purpose. I don't think I would deliberately read out in that case. It would just come out, okay. Because that's going to be at the point where I'm no longer able to think. And those are the only words that I can actually functionally get out of my mouth.
Yeah. Now let's talk about safe words for a minute, because as far as I'm concerned, having an official safe word is critical for tickling. We talk a lot about plain language, and things like saying no, don't, stop is absolutely fine normally. The problem of that in a tickling scene is I think it's very natural if you're being tickled to say things like no, don't, stop. But that doesn't necessarily mean you mean that and you want to stop. So you need to sit down and really hammer out safe words. And I would make sure in this case, whether you use pineapple or hippopotamus or onomatopoeia.
Those words would be shitty for this. You have to have something you can actually say and gasp out. Because from personal experience, I can barely say the word stop. That's actually too hard to say when you're gasping for air.
Right. Well, that's the nonverbal, which we'll get to in a minute. But you need to have something, a very specific safe word that is not no, don't, or stop. Because you will say those most likely during a tickling scene. So you need to discuss that, though. Because if you were at the top and you were just thinking, well, I know that saying no, don't, and stop are pretty standard during tickling. So when my ticklini says that, I'm going to ignore it. You can't do that unless you've negotiated that and discussed it. And you've sat down and said, look, I don't think plain language is going to work in this type of scene. So we need to have very specific safe words. And then I'm going to ignore the plain language.
That has to be agreed upon for sure.
Right? That needs to be negotiated stuff.
And even then, you might want to double check that if they say it, because they might forget.
And then what you need to do and put in place is some nonverbal cues where you could have something like they tap out, or they give you a hand signal, or maybe you give them, some of my favorites is get like those dog toys, the squeaky balls, and they hold it and they squeak, or they just drop the ball, like either one. Like you give them the squeaky ball, and if you either squeak it or drop it, that tells me you're done. Because let's face it, as we talked about earlier, if you really get going on your tickling scene, they may be breathless from constant laughter and they're not able to catch their breath.
Or in my case, hitting the person who's tickling me with the ball.
Right. Which would probably be a good reason for them needing to take a small break and needing to say for they can't breathe. Have you ever laughed so hard you like struggle catching your breath?
Have you met us?
Right.
All the time. On this.
So this is why you would really need to make sure that there is a nonverbal safe word. All right. So that's the important thing of getting into this. Now, Dara, have you actually had any experience with tickling?
Not a tickling scene specifically, no, but I've been tickled. Don't like it.
Don't.
Never have. My entire life. Never have I enjoyed it.
Yeah. The older I get, the less ticklish I'm getting. Though there's like 2 or 3 spots that under the right circumstances might, but it's very interesting. Like I'll have a couple spots on the back of my neck that during haircuts, when the scissors goes across my neck, it just goes across so lightly that I find ticklish.
So like my stomach area, my armpits, like your typical tickle areas, I can sort of turn it off. Like I can be ticklish in those spots, but I can also just be like, I'm not ticklish there now. But my feet, I cannot.
Well, tickling really helps build trust between partners, as it requires vulnerability and mutual understanding and good communication. But that's pretty typical for kinks. I mean, you would hope that whoever you're playing with, you have kind of a trust and an intimacy. But with tickling, it's, pardon my bad pun, it's really hands-on.
All right.
I can only be so clever with this little sleep. And I think to me, there's just something more intimate when I'm putting my bare hands on you and touching you than when I use a toy on you. Right? Do you find that in Electra? Like when you're taking a toy and rubbing it on them versus when you're using your fingers on them?
No, because Electro is going to be a different thing than what you're doing. So mine is, I don't want to use the word tainted, but mine, if I'm doing it, always will have the electricity component. It's just the strength and the feeling of the spark on it. So whether or not I'm doing it lightly with my fingers or lightly with an implement, that's actually going to kind of feel the same.
But to you,
to the person tickling,
yeah. For instance, if I am hitting you with a paddle,
right,
versus I'm spanking you with my bare hands, it's going to hurt the receiver if I do it right, no matter which way I do it.
Yes.
But to me, it's much more intimate
for bare hands,
barehanded than to use the paddle. I mean, I actually had an experience. I did a scene as a demo top with a gentleman. Very first time in all the times I've ever been demoing with somebody who kind of gave me the icks.
Really?
Yeah. And I debated whether or not to continue to do the scene with him. And I know that the person who runs the event would never, ever give me any grief if I had refused because this person gave me the icks. They hadn't done anything specific. It was just, as a woman, my female intuition just kind of, Yeah. And he gave me compliments, which don't get me wrong, I love compliments, but it was the way he said it in the tone and how
it came across creepy.
How close he got to me when he was telling me how beautiful I was and how lucky he was for me to do a scene with him.
Ew.
And he'd obviously, now mind you, the doors open at 9. This was about 9:10. And he was holding a drink in his hand and I could smell alcohol on his breath. But it was very hard to determine if that alcohol on his breath was from the sip or two that he'd had in the 10 minutes we'd been open and he had the drink, or if he'd been pre-gaming.
Right.
So I made the executive decision that I was going to demo top on him, but I wasn't going to touch him with my bare hands. I only touched him with toys.
I've done that. Oh my God. I've done scenes where the person seemed not clean.
Mm-hmm.
Like they didn't scrub hard enough and they were a little, I don't know, just kind of nasty. And I made the decision to only use toys that I could very easily wipe down.
Yeah. Well, for me, it came down to the intimacy and to actually put my hands on you and touch you, especially because I'm not just touching you. I'm touching your ass.
Yeah.
Right? That's not something you don't go around touching most people's asses. I hope you don't.
Well, in a kink dungeon, yeah, you do.
But you have consent, though.
Yes.
But it's not the norm. It's like I don't meet people on the street and go, hey, can I touch your ass?
Good thing we're not dogs then, because they just sniff ass.
Yeah, I don't understand.
Well, it's a dog thing.
I know. I'm not a dog. So, and I'm much more like a pussycat.
Okay. Big Chihuahua energy.
Chihuahua energy, but I'm a pussycat, which means I can be your bestie or I can fuck you over. It just depends on my mood.
Sometimes you switch in the middle of being a bestie.
Yes. Kitty cat.
Mm-hmm.
Kitty cat energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I can totally understand why they stare at you and knock things over the edge just because. I get that.
Just to be a brat.
Just to be a brat. So I do find the touching with my hands very, very intimate. So to have an entire scene where it's literally about just touching with your hands would to be a very intimate scene for me. All right. So let's talk about the psychological and the physical aspects of tickling. You know, what does somebody get out of it? What does the tickler get out of it? What does the ticklini get out of it? So we'll start with psychological dynamics, all right? Well, there's the obvious, laughter and emotional release. So tickling obviously is going to trigger some laughter, hopefully. A lot of laughter, actually, which can be a great way to release any built up tension or stress. It's really hard to be angry or sad when you're laughing.
I digress, because I can be mad. I can be angry while laughing.
You can angry laugh?
I can angry laugh.
I can get angry about the fact that you're making me laugh when I'm angry at you.
Mm-hmm.
But I get over it really quickly because I'm laughing.
I don't. I just get more mad. Well, okay, it depends. Depends on how it's being used. If you're like deliberately trying to diffuse the situation and I'm like, all right, cool, I'll be like, okay, chill. But if you're doing it to like be a jerk about it and yeah, then I'm going to be like, no. Actually, at that point, I probably wouldn't even laugh.
Yeah. Well, in this case, if you've had a long, tough week at work or whatever, and you're doing a tickling scene and everybody's laughing, it's just silly and it's fun. It's a great way to just release all that pent up anger and energy from what's happened at work. Laughter can enhance the whole emotional experience of a scene. My favorite scenes are the ones that we laugh. I just enjoy them more. The serious ones have their time and their place. And I've done a few serious ones where it's all about, for me, the serious ones are all about my bottoms. That's what they want. That's what they need. So that's what I give them. But for me, if somebody asked me what my ideal scene would be, what makes me the happiest is the ones with laughter. Because to me, I equate laughter and happiness. I can't laugh if I'm not happy. And when I'm happy, I laugh. So it's all very tied together for me. So I really enjoy it. And it makes, for me, it makes the scene more fun. If there's little inside jokes that you have with your bottom that you're laughing about, then it makes the scene even more intimate.
Like in Rah-Rah's, in my case, when Rah-Rah twerks and we go, clear.
Yeah, right? It makes it more intimate because it's our special thing. It's our thing. And I love that. And then, of course, there's the physical sensations of tickling can lead to the release of, we love them, endorphins, which can contribute to the feelings of pleasure and relaxation. And we've talked about the psychological benefits of this wonderful endorphin release. Reduced stress, enhanced mood, putting you in your happy place. And all of that comes from laughter. Then, of course, as we talked about the power dynamics, the role of control. So tickling plays into power exchange because, let's face it, the tickler is holding control over the ticklini's sensory experience. I'm going to say this the whole time, just so you know.
It cracks me up.
I know, that's why I'm saying it. And especially, and I highly recommend this, unless, of course, you're also into things like, I would love to see a wrestling scene combined with the tickling scene, because that would be funny, right? Like the tickler manages to take control and get the bottom and get them down and is almost sitting on them as they're holding them down and tickling them.
Have you ever seen wrestling porn?
No, can't say that I have. Obviously, it exists.
It's interesting because they're naked.
Well, yeah.
And then, they're wrestling and stuff, but they, instead of tickling, they go in and, like, if it's two women or something, they'll try and, like, stick a finger up you or something like that. And then they do that to each other and they try to, like, get into sexual situations, and that's how you score the point. Or just do it to distract them. And then the loser gets fucked by the winner.
Sounds like everybody wins. Don't see anybody losing in this situation. But there's definitely a psychological impact of being in control, and that is going to enhance the tickler's sense of dominance. If and no different than really for any of the other kinks. And again, I know I'm repeating this, but I'm really, really trying to hammer in the point that tickling is a kink. I think too many people misunderstand it, and they look down on it like, tickling? Like, seriously? That's a kink? Yeah, it can be. It absolutely can be. So you've also got the surrender and vulnerability of the tickly, and they have to relinquish control, and they're enduring all these tickling sensations for their partner. So, and all of that's going to deepen your trust and your intimacy and thereby reinforcing power exchange. Now, you want to create a safe space for all of this where tickling can be explored without fear or judgment or harm. And you want to use it to build an emotional connection. It involves mutual understanding, the respect, the limits, the needs, and all of that. Psychological effects of intense tickling. Well, there's sensory overload. Intense tickling can absolutely lead to overload where the ticklini's mind is overwhelmed by the sensations. And all of a sudden now they've got heightened emotional and psychological responses. If they're laughing hard enough, breathing becomes difficult.
That's the part that I hit almost immediately. I get overwhelmed and my reaction is to like get the fuck away from me.
And this overload can actually create quite the memorable experience. So what about the physical sensations and responses during tickling? Well, physiological responses, it's going to increase your heart rate and your adrenaline, which is going to heighten your physical and emotional experience. And all of that's going to affect the overall enjoyment of the scene, and hopefully it's going to increase the enjoyment. I wonder, I'd like to do a tickling scene and then with my smartwatch on and see how many calories I burned. Yeah, look, I did exercise today. You did a tickling scene.
I did ab crunches.
Right? Identify the different ticklish areas, like on the body, such as not ours, but other people's soles of their feet, underarms, sides, the neck. And remember, ticklish can vary from person to person. So what's ticklish and sensitive on one person is not going to be on another. So if you're doing a scene together and it's your first time, the first couple of scenes are probably going to be really exploratory. Where are you ticklish? Where are you not? What works? What doesn't? And make sure you're prepared to deal with all these. Some of the techniques you can use for your tickling is make sure you're varying the pressure and the speed. Tickling is not the kind of scene that same damn spot is something you really want to do. You want to make sure that, you're going, sometimes you're doing light, sometimes you got the medium, sometimes you've got the intense, and then you're doing it over under the underarms, and now you're doing it on the feet, but not ours. Then you're doing it on the side, on the neck. There's different tools you can use beyond just fingers, right? There's feathers and brushes, even vibrators.
Ooh, yeah. I could see that.
Right? Do you know what? I just taught a class on pervertibles. Get an electric toothbrush that does not get used in your mouth, does not get used to brush your teeth, but add it to your kink toolbox.
There was a TikTok the other day that this girl was like, I just got a new toy and I can't show it, but I do have the link. I can't believe that this is sold on the TikTok shop. But here, I'll give you one hint. And you hear bzzz. And it was like, holy shit, it's a vibrator. So I'm like, all right, fine. This cannot be happening. So I clicked the link and it's a fucking electric toothbrush.
I did an orgasm scene where the vibrator the guy had was very similar to an electric toothbrush. And this was specifically a vibrator, but it was the same type of thing that the electric toothbrush does.
It was probably, maybe it's a hidden one, but you know how you can get the ones that are like a tube of lipstick?
Mm-hmm. The necklace.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you can use all of those. I mean, even something as just like a piece of paper that you just drag very lightly. Tissues that are just put. I mean, this is the whole thing of why you have to really fool around and find out, but the good way.
Fool around and find out, not fuck around and find out.
Yeah. And try different items and see what tickles somebody and what doesn't, and what pressure, like maybe the tissues work at level 2, but at level 4, it's just annoying, or vice versa. Feathers usually tend to do the trick. I mean, go buy a feather duster at the store. Those are not expensive. You can buy them at local Walmart. Easy for me to say. I don't shop there, so that's why I can't say it.
Walmart is different.
Yeah, well, to me, that's why I don't shop there. I shop at Target. But you can shop there too. They'll have it. So you can do that and try it. Managing physical comfort during the scene. Make sure that you have set this up so that your ticklini is as safe as possible. Remember, once the tickling gets going, they're going to try to physically escape you. So how can you set up the scene so that nobody gets hurt? You've got them lying on a table, but they're not bound. Well, there's the chance that as they're trying to get away from you, they roll off the table. Not safe. If you know that they kick out at you, maybe you need to bind their legs so that you don't get hurt.
Oh, shit.
Right? These are things you don't necessarily think about, but these are important in the scene. You want to make sure that the ticklini's comfortable and that the tickler is safe. And they both actually need to be safe. Be careful to avoid overstimulation and discomfort by pacing the tickling and probably incorporating some breaks or changes in intensity into the scene. Again, when it becomes overwhelming and they are laughing so hard they can barely breathe, you can run into some real health risks because they're not getting enough oxygen.
I've gotten to the point where I've actually started seeing stars and then choking.
Right, because you're not breathing.
Right.
I mean, and we've all said it at one point, oh my God, I can't catch my breath. I'm laughing so hard, which since we're talking, that's not actually accurate. But when I get my silent laugh, that usually means breathing is a little more complicated, which is why there's no sound coming out of me as I'm laughing.
She's just trying to breathe, not actually make sounds.
So you want to be aware of that and monitor that and take breaks and not just intense the whole time. It's a very different kind of scene than maybe say like Impact, where you start off slow, you build up, and then it stays intense for a long period of time before you have the cool down. I wouldn't recommend that for a tickling scene. Of course, making sure you're checking in with the ticklini and making adjustments as needed.
I'm gonna have to do it. I'm gonna have to post a no context.
Just the type word ticklini?
Yep, that's it. Word of the
How does
day.
one even spell ticklini?
I don't know. I'm gonna make it up as I go along.
I wonder if spell check will stop you. So we've already talked about, from a safety and communication standpoint, about setting boundaries and safe practices, making sure you've established those boundaries beforehand, that it is extremely important to have a thorough conversation before engaging in tickling play. Please don't look at this as, oh my God, it's just tickling. I tickled my kids when I was little. I was tickled when I was little. It's not a big deal.
It is a big deal. It's torture.
I mean, here's something really just to really get you thinking. So for those of us who are old enough, which is definitely me, and I'm sure also Dara, we were tickled. And we would say the typical no, don't, stop.
No, comma, don't, comma, stop. Period.
Exclamation point.
Exclamation point in my case.
Okay?
Several.
And whoever was tickling us didn't stop. That was the game, and they kept going. Children of today, we are trying to teach them the importance of boundaries and trying to teach them the importance of saying no, and that people are supposed to listen to you.
It's part of bodily autonomy. In our day, it was, you're a child, you have no choices.
Yeah. So we're teaching children, even in the playful tickling stuff, when they say no, we stop. Or when they say stop, we stop. And trying to let them understand that that's what's going to happen. Well, tickling in kink how it's got to be.
I was going to say, isn't that kind of a really good way to do the bodily autonomy training in kids? You tickle them and they say stop and you stop?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I have a little guy friend who loves when I tickle him. In fact, he grabs my hand and puts it on his
he's
body
at that age? Yeah.
to tickle him. And I'm really working hard for him to understand bodily autonomy. So when he says stop, I stop. And then he looks at me like,
why'd you stop?
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And I actually say to him, because it's part of the teaching process, going, you said stop. So I stopped.
Way, way, way back in the day when I taught preschool, I had the 18-month to 2-year-old crew, which I, by the way, specifically requested not to have. But one of their favorite games was I would get a little water bottle and they would line up, which was part of what I was trying to teach them. They would line up, they would say, please, and I would squirt their tongue with the water bottle. They loved it because it tickled. And they would get a squirt across the tongue and then they go around to the back of the line. So that age group, I don't know why, they just love being tickled.
They love being tickled. They love water play. It's a fun age.
I hate it.
Sorry.
I specifically did not want that group. That's the group that made me quit.
So sorry.
When you're told, hey, we need you to be in this room for 2 weeks until we find a lead teacher, and then 2 months later, you're still there, I fucking quit. That is literally the ones that made me quit that shit. Never went back to preschool after that.
That was my favorite age with my kids.
Nope.
Though I am kind of enjoying adulthood too, when they're not my responsibility anymore.
When they're not texting you being jerks, yeah.
Are they being jerks? Or are they just being normal, typical, annoying children?
Is the middle one 25 yet?
You're going to make me do math. Yes.
The middle one is actually 25?
He's 25 this year.
Well, then he should know better and stop being...
So I did what I always do. And I sent I sent my kids my very bad puns. And I feel like, should I share with these people? Because
knock yourself out.
It's pretty funny here.
My husband came downstairs the other day and goes, "Hey, I'm reading a book about anti-gravity. It's really hard to put down."
I like that. I may have to
use
those. So we started with, I said, okay, how does a non-binary person kill people?
They slash them.
Yes. And he wrote back, he goes, don't really get it. Is the dash supposed to be a throat slash?
What the fuck did he call it?
Hold on. So my oldest corrected him, and he wrote back, eh. So then I said, okay, how about this one? 2 tampons walk down the street. Who says hi first?
Hold on. Who says hi first?
Neither. They're both stuck-up cunts.
Oh my God. I'm still stuck on your son calling a slash a dash.
He didn't know. So then he wrote back, all right, that's more like it. So I said, woohoo. He says, a great showing of perseverance, Mom. I said, aw, you've gained favorite status again. He goes, again, I wasn't still? I said, well, you were teetering after the last joke. He says, he goes, hey, I make you earn it. I'm not just giving away laughs.
Okay. I didn't know that kid had such a sense of humor. He's always been such a stick in the mud.
He just has a very, very dry sense of humor.
You know what? I can roll with that. I can roll with that.
So I don't even know what I was talking about, but there we go. Tickling. Yeah, I tickled my kids. There you go. That was the whole story. I'm sure I had a point. I really honestly don't remember it at this
bodily
point.
Autonomy and saying stop. And
he's my favorite again.
Yes.
Okay, whatever. All right, so we talked about the safe word system and the importance of actually having a real safe word versus just plain language, because plain language tends not to work so well in tickling. And even better than just a safe word, also having safe word cues, be it tapping, be it dropping a ball, being whatever. Constant check-ins, constant adjusting techniques based upon feedback. Now, once the scene is over, discuss the experience. Talk about what worked, what didn't. What do you want to do again? What don't you want again? What parts did you find were good ticklish versus bad ticklish? Like, right? So Dora's feet are ticklish. For her, that's bad ticklish, not good ticklish. She didn't enjoy it.
No.
And if you've negotiated aftercare, then obviously have that aftercare. So what are some of the common misconceptions and challenges when it comes to tickling? Well, one is that tickling is always a light and playful activity. People really think that it's just silliness and fun, but the reality is tickling can range from gentle and teasing touches to intense controlled sensations that play into the power dynamics and the psychological experiences. Tickling is another myth, is tickling is just for kids or it's not very serious. And that's a stereotype that we really need to get rid of, because tickling can actually be a really sophisticated part of BDSM, and it involves, just like any other kink, negotiation, consent, and careful technique. You can use it on its own. You can use it with role play or bondage or power exchange. You can even incorporate impact into it as well, and just have tickling as one of your tools, the same way paddles are one of your tools. Another myth is that only certain types of people enjoy tickling. Well, tickling is actually enjoyed by a very diverse range of individuals, regardless of their personality, their background, or their other kinks. Because you can incorporate tickling into more than just its own thing, and it can be incorporated into other things, more people probably are using tickling than you realize. Because they're doing an impact scene that some tickling has snuck into, or an electro scene that some tickling has snuck into, they don't look at it as a tickling scene.
Nope, it's an electro scene that happens to have tickling.
So if you ask them what their kinks are, they're not necessarily going to mention tickling, even though if you talk to them after the scene is over and go, so what are some of the things you liked? Oh, well, I really kind of liked it when you tickled me. Well, okay, then believe it or not, tickling could be one of your kinks. And if you look at it at the viewpoint of, well, oh, tickling is, I like the serious stuff, not tickling, you might be really limiting your exploration and missing out on some lot of fun. Another myth is that tickling is harmless and doesn't require aftercare.
I beg to differ.
Oh, you don't even have to beg, baby. You don't even have to beg. You are so right on that. Right? Tickling doesn't necessarily involve physical pain, though it can, because as Dara pointed out, right? Your ab muscles are going to be sore. You're laughing so hard you can barely breathe. It's going to feel like quite the workout when you're done.
I've literally started choking and vomiting from laughing.
It's still emotionally and psychologically intense, which means it needs aftercare. Myth number 5 is all tickling is the same and doesn't require technique.
No.
No. First of all, different areas of your body need to be tickled differently. When I'm tickling, I have to be so careful because I have long nails. I don't want my tickling scene to turn into a scratching scene. That's a whole different sensation that we didn't discuss.
Or a gouging scene.
So you do have to have some technique and being careful. Myth number 6, tickling is inherently non-consensual or uncontrolled. Well, it shouldn't be. It should be discussed. It needs to be negotiated. It needs to be handled the same way that you would handle any other type of kink. All right? So I'm going to go real fast because I've been talking so much about the other stuff. Real quickly, some basic tickling techniques. You've got feathers, light touch. You can use them to create a gentle, teasing sensation that induces laughter. You've got the poking and prodding, your more traditional standard type of tickling, right? It's going to be focused. It's going to be different, light or hard, depending upon how much effort you put in with your fingers. You've got tracing patterns. This is a fun game. I know we used to play this as a kid. And this is a very fun game that you can play if you're incorporating tickling into a power exchange relationship. Write messages.
Oh, yeah.
And they have to guess the letters. They have to guess the messages.
Or the shape. I do
shape,
that.
Right? And you can, this is a fun one to then incorporate with either, let's say, impact or electro or something else, where you trace the pattern. And if they get it wrong,
they get a smack.
They get a
zap.
Mm-hmm. All right. You can even use temperature as part of your tickling by using cool or warm objects as you're tickling and to give them this different sensation. Yeah.
You got it.
Talking is so hard. We talked about vibrators. There's some electric toys that you can use. I know you probably have some of your electro tools that could be used for more tickling.
Oh, yeah.
But with
probably.
zappy zap in the middle of the tickling. All right. Oh, I'm zipping through my notes.
I can tell. I'm proud of you.
Right? So tailor your techniques to individual preferences. This is why negotiation is so critical to talk about what people do and do not like. Make sure you're avoiding overstimulation and discomfort. Pace yourself and take breaks as needed. You can go light, hard, whatever pattern you kind of want. So that's tickling when it comes to BDSM. I really hope that we have encouraged you to look at tickling as an actual kink and that you will treat it as such and use and do your negotiations and your discussing, even if it's really an electro scene or an impact scene that you're just kind of throwing a little tickling into it. Make sure you have permission to tickle. Do not just go, I'm going to impact you and then just as a mind fuck, I'm going to do a little light tickling instead if you haven't negotiated it. I also help you learn, do not fucking tickle Dar's feet or face the consequences.
Don't even fucking go near Dara's feet.
And I also hope that you will now refer to people as the ticklini because it will make us very happy.
No, oh my God, it has to be ticklini. That's just it. That's just the word now. Done.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. If you enjoyed what you heard, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a minute of our fun and educational content. New episodes drop every Friday.
If you love what we do and want to show support, there are several ways. Join us on Patreon at patreon.com/pinkkinkpodcast. You can support our affiliates or help spread the word about our kinky podcast to your friends.
Don't forget to rate and review Pink Kink on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Those 5-star reviews go a long way in boosting our podcast through the algorithm and reaching more listeners.
Sign up for our Pink Kink Institute classes. Shop at our Etsy shop, Pink Kink Boutique. Stay connected with us on social media. You'll find all the links on our link tree posted in the show notes.
Your support means the world to us. So until next time, stay pretty, stay safe,
and stay twisted.